Maybe you know. Science meets the questions you never thought to ask. In a rainforest in Thailand, a carpenter ant is climbing, not down toward the nest, where her sisters are waiting. Up. She locks her jaws onto the underside of a leaf, exactly 25 centimeters above the forest floor. The sun crosses noon. She stops moving. Inside her body, something that is not her has been driving for almost 3 weeks. And in about 6 hours, a stalk will burst out of the back of her head, raining spores down onto the colony below. She never had a choice. To understand what's happening to that ant, you have to understand what her life is supposed to look like. Her species is Camponotus leonardi, carpenter ants. They live in colonies of tens of thousands across the rainforests of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines. Their world is the canopy. They march along the same branches every morning, drinking sap from the same wounds, defending the same patches of bark. They almost never go below 7 meters off the ground. That rule is not written down anywhere. It's written into them. Below 7 meters, the air gets thick and wet. The temperature stays a steady 24 degrees Celsius. And down there, in that narrow band of humidity, something has been waiting for the colony for about 48 million years. We know that number because of fossilized leaf, but we'll come back to that. For now, just remember this. The ant who climbs down past 7 meters is not coming back. She doesn't know why she went down. She didn't decide. Something smaller than a grain of pollen drifted onto her exoskeleton, and now she belongs to it. The first scientist to really document what comes next was David Hughes, a biologist at Penn State University. Between 2009 and 2011, Hughes and his team strapped tiny cameras to leaves in a forest in southern Thailand and waited. What they recorded changed how biologists talk about parasites. An infected ant leaves her trail around midday. She wanders in confused, jerky steps. She drops below the safe 7-meter line. She climbs onto the underside of a leaf, almost always on the north side of a plant. She finds a vein. She bites down, and then her jaws lock. Hughes called it the death grip. The mandibles don't relax even after the ant dies, because the muscles that would open them have already been eaten. Hughes also noticed something stranger. In certain patches of forest, he found graveyards. 20, 30, sometimes more than 200 corpses, all clinging to leaves at the same height, all facing the same way, all dead. The fungus had been farming this single patch of jungle for generations. So what is the fungus actually doing in there? Its name is Cordyceps unilateralis. A single spore lands on the ant's shell and slowly drills through the cuticle, the way a tiny needle works through fabric. Inside, the spore becomes a yeast-like cell that starts dividing, drinking the ant's fatty tissue. For the first week, the ant feels almost normal. She still works. She still feeds her sisters. But she's now half ant, half something else. By week 2, the fungal cells have spread through her abdomen, her thorax, even down into her legs. By week 3, the fungus has eaten so much of her insides that she's basically a hollow shell of cuticle filled with thread. And here's the part that sounds like science fiction. The fungus doesn't just live in her. It grows around her muscles, fiber by fiber. Imagine a marionette where every single string is wrapped lovingly, individually, around a different muscle bundle. That's what's inside her. The puppeteer isn't pulling from above. The puppeteer is wearing her like a suit. Now, for almost a century, biologists assumed something obvious. If a fungus controls the body, it must control the brain. That's how mind control works in every horror movie. The parasite gets into the head, presses the buttons, drives the host. But in 2017, a graduate student in Hughes' lab named Meridel Frederickson decided to actually look. She froze dozens of infected ants right at the moment of the death grip. She sliced their tiny bodies into thousands of paper-thin cross-sections. She fed those sections to a machine learning system that rebuilt each ant in 3 dimensions. And she found something almost no one expected. The fungus was everywhere, in the legs, the jaws, the gut, the cheeks. But the brain, the actual ant brain, was clean, untouched. Not a single fungal cell had pushed inside. Think about that for a second. The fungus is steering the ant. The fungus is making her climb, bite, hold. But the fungus never touches the steering wheel. It's controlling the body without controlling the mind that runs the body. That's a different category of horror. Frederickson's team reconstructed something like 1,500 cross-sections. The numbers were stunning. In a fully zombified ant, fungal cells made up almost 40% of the host's total body weight. The cells weren't just floating around either. They were linked. They formed tubes between each other, passing signals, behaving less like a colony of separate cells and more like one organism distributed through an insect body. Carissa de Becker, a microbiologist who collaborated on this work and runs her own Cordyceps lab in the Netherlands, ran chemistry tests on what those connected cells were producing. Her team found compounds that don't appear in ordinary fungi at all, molecules that look custom-built to mess with insect neurons and muscle tissue. The fungus isn't using one drug. It's using a whole pharmacy. And here's a number that should make your scalp tingle. When researchers studied the timing of the death grip, they found that infected ants almost always bite down within a window of just a few hours, often clustered around solar noon. The fungus has a clock. We have not yet figured out how. And just when you think you've understood this thing, the fossil record makes it worse. In 2010, a paleontologist named Torsten Wappler was studying fossilized leaves from a messel pit in Germany. The messel pit is a layer of preserved shale that froze a moment of life 48 million years ago. On one of those leaves, Wappler found a strange set of scars, 5 tiny puncture marks, arranged in a perfect circle around the main vein of the leaf. He compared them to leaves from a modern Thai rainforest, leaves that had been bitten by death-gripped ants. The scars were identical. Cordyceps has been doing this since before there were apes, before whales fully lived in oceans, before the Himalayas finished rising. While our ancestors were still small rodents hiding from owls, this fungus was already running its protocol: drive the ant down, bite the vein, die at noon. The graveyards hues found in Thailand may have been running for hundreds of generations. The graveyards in the fossil record had been running for millions. We're not watching a horror story. We're watching one of the oldest farming operations on the planet, run by something with no eyes, no nerves, and no brain. There are now more than 600 known species of Cordyceps fungi, and almost every one is a specialist. One species takes spiders. One takes caterpillars. One takes beetles. One takes wasps. Each fungus has been co-evolving with its host for so long that it usually can't infect anything else. The most famous is Cordyceps sinensis, the Himalayan caterpillar fungus. Tibetan and Nepali harvesters dig it out of high alpine soil between May and July. On the global market, top-grade caterpillar fungus has sold for more than $50,000 per kilogram, more expensive, gram for gram, than gold. There's one thing the entire genus cannot do, though, and you should hear it clearly. Cordyceps cannot infect humans. Our body temperature, around 37 degrees Celsius, cooks these fungi alive. The Last of Us is fiction. The real terror is more interesting than that. Right now, in forests on 6 continents, hundreds of fungal species are gently steering the bodies of insects that have no idea they're being driven. Climate change is shifting which species end up where. Hugh's team has flagged that warmer, wetter regions could expand Cordyceps zones by the end of this century. Go back to that ant in Thailand, the one climbing at the start. She was a clockwork creature, same trail, same sap, same 7-meter rule, every day of her short life. And then a spore the size of a pollen grain landed on her back, and her clock changed hands. Her body kept working. Her brain kept ticking. Her legs kept walking. But the route was no longer hers. She climbed because she was driven. She bit because she was wearing a puppeteer. She died at noon because something older than the Himalayas had a schedule to keep. The strangest part isn't that this happens. The strangest part is that we have a fossil leaf showing it has been happening in almost the same way since long before humans existed. Somewhere in that Thai rainforest right now, another ant is on her way down past 7 meters. She never had a choice, and she still doesn't know. Next time, we're going somewhere even weirder. A parasite so small you could fit 1 million of them on a pinhead that gets into mouse brains, makes mice fearless around cats, and may already be living inside roughly 1 in 3 human brains on Earth right now. It's called Toxoplasma gondii. And the question scientists are now asking out loud is uncomfortable. How much of your personality is actually yours? Subscribe, and we'll find out together. Thanks for watching. If this sparked a question, drop it in the comments. It might be your next video. We'll see you next time.